Ladies and gentlemen, the event will start in a few moments. Please be informed that the event will start at 2 p.m. Jakarta time. Please mute your audio when you are not speaking. You can write down your question in the chat box, either in Zoom or in the YouTube. The event is also live streamed through UNDP SPOY YouTube account. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the event is about to start. Please mute your audio when you are not speaking. You can write down your question in the chat box. And the event is also live streamed through UNDP SPOY's YouTube account. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For you who are in Jakarta in Indonesia, good morning for you who are in Europe, and also good evening or even good early morning for you that are in North America. Your Excellency, the Deputy Minister for Food and Agribusiness Coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs, Mrs. Musdalifah Mahmud, the Senior Advisor for National Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil in Indonesia, Mr. Rusman Heriawan, Resident Ambassadors in Indonesia, the Indonesian ambassadors, distinguished speakers, and all webinar participants. Welcome to the second day of the International Webinar on Sustainable Palm Oil Development in Indonesia. And if you may join the first day yesterday, we know that the Indonesian government have a strong commitment to put in place sustainability principles in palm oil sector in Indonesia. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present the second day of International Webinar on Sustainable Palm Oil Development in Indonesia 2021.
You're muted now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first agenda is a welcoming remark from the Deputy Minister for Food and Agribusiness, Coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs, Mrs. Musdalifah Mahmud. Now we will invite her to give the welcoming remark. Please, Ibu Mus, time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ibu Silo. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon from Indonesia. Distinguished speakers, ambassador of friendly countries, head of development partners, companies, and non-government organizations, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very delighted to be here to give the welcoming remark for the second day of International Webinar on Sustainable Palm Oil Development in Indonesia. Yesterday was the opening and the first day of this international webinar, where representative from the government of Indonesia was showcasing the ongoing effort by the government to accelerate sustainable palm oil development in the country. This was done through various progressive and innovative policies intervention that were intended to foster an enabling environment for a more sustainable and inclusive palm oil sector. In addition, this commitment was also supported by stakeholders from private sectors and smallholders. As we heard yesterday from Mr. Joko Priyono, Vice President, Director of PT Astra Agro Lestari, and Mr. Sutiana, the Chairman of Tani Lestari Cooperative, as the world's largest palm oil producing country, Indonesia has its own strategic role and interest to ensure the economic, environment, and social benefit of palm oil are still accessible for more generations to come. Nevertheless, given the massive scale of palm oil sector, it is impossible to put all the responsibility solely on the government shoulder, especially in the age of Industry 4.0, where all things are interconnected and use of modern smart technology is flourishing. Collaboration and partnership are fundamental. Therefore, the government of Indonesia has always been committed to foster and support multi-stakeholders collaboration to implement sustainable palm oil development. The importance of collaboration and partnership is also reflected when the United Nations decided to include partnership as a dedicated and specific goal in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Wilmus, you've suddenly gone muted. I don't know why. Did somebody mute?
Sorry. Maybe I would like to read.
I think we have a problem with somebody doing the muting, and they're muting Ibumus.
Okay.
You're back.
Okay. Can you hear me? Once again, I can read.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you, Ibumus.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the importance of collaboration and partnership is also reflected with the United Nations decided to include partnership is a dedicated and specific goals in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This commitment is currently known as the Goal 17 in SDGs. With the aim to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Today's event is essentially the concrete example of our effort to achieve Goal 17 in SDGs. In the next session, you will listen to the experience of colleagues from Chiak Palawan Landscape Program Coalition in partnering to support the sustainable palm oil development in Indonesia. Chiak and Palawan are long-established palm oil producing districts in Riau province, with significant numbers of independent smallholders and home to important environment landscapes. This province and district are also included as prioritized areas to implement programs outlined in the Presidential Instruction Number 6, year 2019, on National Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil 2019 to 2024. In addition to colleagues from Chiak Palawan Landscape Program Coalition, we recognize there are large number of great initiatives related to sustainable palm oil on the ground. Many of these initiatives are conducted collaboratively by the companies for all portions of the palm oil supply chain. Development partners, NGOs, or CSOs, along with the national and subnational government. I hope all these initiatives will not only stop at becoming a standalone or pilot project, but instead will be replicated and upscaled until it becomes a mainstream and common practice for palm oil production across the country. And I strongly believe the only means to achieve this is through global partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar will offer you a unique opportunity to meet and discuss with key players in palm oil sectors, not only from Indonesia, but also from around the globe. We have high-level representatives from embassies, development partners, NGO, CSOs, research institutions, as well as upstream, midstreams, and downstream companies. Therefore, I truly hope this webinar will become the first step toward more collaboration and partnership between stakeholders from the global level and Indonesia. With all policies and regulations related to sustainable palm oil are currently in place, now is the perfect momentum for you to collaboratively support the sustainable palm oil development in Indonesia. Going forward, with all support from you and all other relevant stakeholders, I'm very optimistic that sustainable palm oil is not a mere jargon, and instead it is a realistic and applicable concept that could be achieved in the next years to come. This will only be achieved if all stakeholders, including producer, trader, and buyer companies, development partners, NGOs, CSOs, research institutions, and government work together hand in hand in initiating and supporting sustainable palm oil activities, particularly at landscape level. I can assure you that at the moment, there are already many great initiatives happening on the ground that are waiting to be replicated at scale. This replication and upscaling process will also be supported by the enabling environment and that was established as the result of progressive and innovative policies and regulation from the government of Indonesia. We have done our part, and hopefully you will do yours too. Lastly, I have this webinar will not only become a ceremonial and one of the event, but instead will be followed by series of webinar or bilateral and multilateral meetings result in concrete activity, initiatives and activities that can accelerate the achievement toward a more sustainable and inclusive palm oil sector in Indonesia. I look forward to hearing an insight from this webinar and seeing them carried forward into our work together in the future. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Mus. The takeaway from her speech is actually emphasized. We need to collaborate, stakeholders, to put in place sustainable palm oil as a reality on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the presentation and discussion session, invite all participants to write down your question in the chat box throughout the session. You don't have to wait until the speakers finish speaking. We will select few questions to be answered directly by the speakers. Now we will start the presentation and discussion session on the private sector collaboration for sustainable palm oil development in Indonesia. If yesterday we learned that Indonesia's government already issued many policies on sustainable palm oil that support the implementation of sustainable palm oil, now we are learning the experience on how to put sustainability into practice through the collaboration in the landscape approach. There are three distinct speakers from Chiak Palawan Landscape Coalition who will be joining us in this session. First speaker is Ms. Fenike Braskem, the project manager for landscape program of Demeter Consulting. The second speaker is Ms. Stephanie Lim, the sustainability communication lead of Musimas, representing growers, producers company. And lastly, we have Nasuha Toha, stakeholder engagement manager of Cargill Asia Pacific, who will represent buyer company. I will be happily co-facilitating this session with my colleague, Charles O'Malley. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning. Hi.
Yeah, hopefully you already got a cup of coffee to start your day. How's the weather in UK?
The weather, it got cold. Spring started and went back to winter, but anyway.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy to have you as the colleagues to facilitate this session. So without further ado, I will invite Finike Braskem to make presentation. Please, Finike, time is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Aisha. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this session, in which I will introduce you to the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Program. I will share you more about the background of the program, the goals that we have, and the objectives we achieve, the process that we have gone through to develop the program, and I will provide specific attention to the collaboration between private sector organizations. I'm sorry, I am having an echo. Yes. I will pay specific attention to the collaboration between private sector and the government, and hopefully through this program we can show how international private sector palm oil supply chain companies can contribute or are contributing to sustainable palm oil development in Indonesia. Next slide, please. So why have we selected Chiak and Palawan districts in Riau as the target for our program? There are several reasons for that. First of all, as Ibu Musdalifa already introduced briefly, Chiak and Palawan districts are important players for palm production. More than 700,000 hectares of the two districts are... I still am having the echo, I'm sorry, can someone fix that? Thank you. More than 700,000 hectares of the two districts are palm oil plantations. This can be smallholders or estate crops companies. There's 51 mills in Chiak and Palawan, of which a third is marked as high risk for sourcing by Global Forest Watch. As you can see on the map, the darker gray areas represent peatlands. More than 50% of the two districts are covered in peatlands, which are at risk for development for not only palm oil, but agricultural expansion in general. And also the remaining forest in the two districts is still at risk for deforestation. At the same time, the district governments have provided good enabling and conditions for starting landscape program. In Chiak, in 2018, the district government endorsed the Green Chiak Roadmap for Sustainable Development. And recently in Palawan, the district government endorsed the District Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil. The companies who have initiated the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Program all source directly or indirectly from the two districts. And they have recognized that collaboration is needed, collaboration between companies and with government to address and resolve those issues that need a landscape approach instead of just a supply chain approach. If we go to the next slide, we have the goals and the objectives of the program are to make sustainable palm oil production models the norm in the two districts, which basically means that we want to move toward production that is deforestation free and free of peatland development and exploitation. In order to achieve this, we have formulated 4 goals: to protect and enhance forests, peatland and natural ecosystems, to empower smallholders and communities to improve their livelihoods, to respect labor and community rights, and to support the government, the district government, to improve their policies and plans to pursue their objectives towards sustainable palm oil production. Next slide, please. The Chiak Palawan Landscape Program is developed around 3 phases. We have the intervention design phase, the partnership development phase, and the implementation and monitoring phase. The intervention design phase started in June 2018, when the initiating companies agreed to collaborate to pursue the sustainable development, palm oil development goals in the 2 districts. The intervention design phase took about a year, and we used this time to really create a good understanding of the palm oil production landscape, the stakeholders that are active, the initiatives that are already existing, and also to get a clear insight of what are the goals of the individual stakeholders and stakeholder groups. During the intervention design phase, we closely collaborated with government, CSOs, and other stakeholders to receive input to shape our program, to define our goals and outcomes, and also to ensure that the program goals contribute to the objectives of the district governments. That also means that the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Program does not stand on its own. It's not an individual program that is running with the support of the coalition. Now, it contributes to the objectives of the district government. And we have emphasized this from the very beginning and will continue to do this until the end. The second phase is the partnership development phase. And this phase does not really have a concrete beginning and an end, because it's more of a process. But because of the importance of collaboration, multi-stakeholder partnerships, we do frame this as a separate phase. In the partnership development phase, we kind of distinguish two levels of collaboration. First of all, collaboration within the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Coalition between the companies, and also from the program collaboration together with other stakeholders, such as the government. I will explain in more detail later on. And then in January 2020, we started with the third phase, the implementation, where we actually started the activities in the field, and the implementation phase will continue until the end of 2024, which makes this program around 5 years operational. If we go to the next slide, here I present you the coalition framework, the Chiak Palawan Landscape Coalition. In the program development, we have paid a lot of attention to the development and establishment of the coalition. And we have done this because already from the beginning, there were a number of companies involved, which created a need for clarity, for structure. As you can see, we're distinguishing 3 types of coalition partners. We have coalition members, coalition supporters, and facilitators. And there's a reason why we have decided to have members and supporters within the coalition. The first reason, the main reason, is because we have members, we can create long-term commitment. For a period of 5 years, members, private sector companies contribute financially to the program. So individual members ensure this commitment to the operationalization of the landscape program. And also from the program itself towards external stakeholders like the government, we want to show that there is a long-term commitment. Members have different roles and responsibilities. For example, members can claim contributions to all of the 4 goals of the program. Members are part of the collaboration agreement, or the MOU, with the district government. And coalition members also have certain decision-making powers. Then we also have coalition supporters, and this function is for those organizations or companies who do want to be involved in landscape programs, in multi-stakeholder dialogues, maybe even specifically want to contribute to sustainable palm oil development in Chiak and Palawan, but are not able to make this long-term commitment. For those companies or organizations, we offer this supporter role through which they can, for example, contribute only to one goal or contribute to a specific activity to be implemented. And then we have a facilitator. Currently, this role is done by Demeter and Proforest. The key role of the facilitator is to engage with stakeholders, to make sure the program is operational, is managed and implemented, and of course, the monitoring of progress of the program. In the implementation of our program, we can distinguish three key stakeholder groups that we collaborate with: private sector, government, and civil society, villages and communities. If we look, for example, at the implementation and collaboration with private sector, what does that mean? We aim for direct support to palm oil mills to improve their understanding of sustainability standards and regulations. And we aim for those mills, for all mills in the 2 districts, to make commitments towards sustainable palm oil production, and also to be able to support them to implement those commitments. At the village level, we look a little bit broader. We look a little bit broader than just palm oil. For example, we aim to support villages improving their land use management, to support conservation and peatland management, but also improving livelihoods of farmers and their families. We always try to make supply chain links between palm oil mills and villages. This is something that from the private sector is something that is desired, especially downstream companies or companies in the supply chain always would like to know where exactly do they source from and what are the linkages that they have with the production base. Making this link between mills and villages is also important for the long term after 2025, that mills are able to support villages and palm oil smallholders, for example, to continue their sustainability practices based on a supply chain relation. And then, of course, we have the engagement with the government. As I mentioned before, the program aims to support the implementation of Green Chiak and the District Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil in Palawan. And also we aim to support the increasing the government knowledge and capacity to pursue their objectives. This all comes together in district-wide multi-stakeholder collaboration from the perspective of the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Program and the coalition. We have a focus on palm oil, but of course in the situation of wider landscapes, this can be much broader and involving other commodities as well. Next slide. So how can this multi-stakeholder collaboration look like? Here you see an example, a model that is currently being developed in Chiak. As I mentioned, in 2018, the Chiak district government endorsed the Green Chiak roadmap, and later was established the Green Chiak coordination body. This is led by the government itself, but very strongly supported by private sector, CSOs, and communities from the district. At this moment, the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Coalition, the companies are exploring the best option and the best way how can be represented in this Green Chiak coordination body. And it's important to mention because a number of the coalition members do not have operational presence in Chiak, but they do contribute to the objectives of Green Chiak. And that's why this representation in this Green Chiak coordination body is important. And we do emphasize that the coalition has an MOU or a collaboration agreement directly with the district government to formalize the contribution to Green Chiak. If we take a closer look at the implementation at the village level, currently we are active in 7 villages. We will be scaling up to 6 additional villages this year. And ultimate goal is to have activities ongoing in 50 villages by 2024. The Chiak Palawan Landscape Program has established a local team of implementers who do some of the work, but we also collaborate closely with local partners for technical support, for capacity building, and so on. One of the things that we always do when we conduct activities is to make the link to higher program goals, but also to the goals of companies and the districts. So every activity we do, we ask ourselves the question, how does this contribute to the higher goals and objectives? If we go to the next slide, I will show you a little bit more of how we are implementing in the villages. Currently, we are developing the concept of the village support program, which is sort of comprehensive packages of activities that meet the needs of the communities and the villages, but also, of course, again, contribute to the objectives of the companies and the government. And we are developing this because we know that there are many private sector companies, especially downstream companies, who do want to be involved in landscape approaches, who do want to be involved in supporting sustainable palm oil development in producing areas. But sometimes it's too difficult. It's unclear how those companies can join. And through the development of a village support program, we aim to create more insight in what it means for companies to become involved in such multi-stakeholder initiatives and what it means in terms of activities in the field and impacts that can be achieved. Next slide, please. As a short summary, so how within the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Program are we ensuring this collaboration through our program development and the implementation? As I mentioned before, we have clear collaboration between the companies within the coalition. There's distinction between members and supporters with clear roles and responsibilities. And that enables those companies, who also sometimes are competitors, to collaborate to achieve their shared objectives. Also, we have actively engaged stakeholders, wide range of stakeholders in the design phase already. So before the actual implementation of the program, and to make sure that our program objectives fit within the objectives of the district governments and other stakeholders' objectives. During the implementation, we continuously consult with other stakeholders. And we also, as I mentioned in the previous slide, we always link field activities to high-level objectives. And then lastly, of course, we have continuous coordination through these multi-stakeholder forums, but also this one-on-one coordination with other stakeholders is equally important for our program to be successful. This is a short an overview of the partners that we are currently collaborating with. We're collaborating with the local government, with local and regional and international organizations and networks, both for providing us the structures in which we operate, but also to actually implement the activities in the field. Next slide. Then I would like to conclude my presentation with some lessons learned that we've learned over the last 2.5 years on collaboration. First of all, in order to achieve collaboration, parties or stakeholders that are involved need to have aligned visions and goals. For example, achieving sustainable palm oil production. And the way towards achieving this vision or goals can be different. But having this baseline, having this base aligned vision, that is super important for success. Then we've also learned that the commitment from the district government is crucial. In Chiak and Palawan, there are policy frameworks in place, and that's also one of the reasons why we have selected those districts for the program. But also in the implementation itself, we notice that having this commitment from the government actually allows us to be operational, to conduct our work, especially towards other stakeholders, so private sector and CSO. Then we've also learned that landscape approaches open doors for multi-stakeholder collaboration, but still can be challenging. And this is mainly related to history. Not many stakeholders are historically collaborating. For example, private sector does not have a history of collaborating much with civil society organizations. That is something that is coming up recently. And it takes time. Stakeholders from all sides need to gain trust and to understand that there is different ways to achieve aligned shared visions. So it takes time, and it is a challenge, but it's absolutely not a challenge that cannot be that can be addressed. And then lastly, the final point that we have learned is that it's important for stakeholders to have clear own objectives. For example, private sector companies can have objectives to achieve NDPE compliance palm oil supply chain. But it's also always important to make the link to the wider landscape. For example, at the village level, we can say, if a palm oil company wants to achieve NDPE compliance through palm oil smallholders, it might involve some changes at the village level. Going a little bit broader than just palm oil might be the way forward to achieve your objective. Next slide. Yes, thank you. With having said that, I would only like to say, please visit our website for a little bit more information. Also, if you are interested in joining the Chiak and Palawan coalition, feel free to contact us. We can explain more about what it means to become a member or a supporter. And I would like to invite my co-panelists, Stephanie Lim from Musimas and Nasuha Taha from Cargill, who have been part of the coalition from the very beginning, to share your experience on what it is to be part of the Chiak and Palawan Landscape Program. Stephanie, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Fanneke, for giving us a very brief overview of the whole landscape project. So I'm Stephanie, the Sustainability Communications Lead at Musimas Group. Perhaps let me give a brief background of Musimas. We are one of the largest integrated palm oil corporations with operations spanning across in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. And as one of the most prominent players in the palm oil industry, we aspire to be a responsible leader in the evolution of the industry and drive sustainability with innovation. We also recognize that certain issues such as the well-being of forests, food security, biodiversity, and livelihoods are interconnected. And the best chance for maximizing impact is to integrate these themes into the same communities or geographical areas. We acknowledge the limitations one company can have. So we actually run Indonesia's largest independent smallholders program for palm oil. But we realize we're only one company. We would want to do more on a landscape level. And this is the innovation that I mentioned earlier. We want to capitalize on our relationships with customers, with our technical partners like Demeter. We want to collaborate with NGOs and the local government and integrate their efforts into our current projects with our suppliers and smallholders for maximum impact and scale. So very cliche, but as the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And this landscape approach really illustrates that saying, and it is an example of our commitment for our roadmap, for Musimas's roadmap towards a responsible supply chain, including setting targets for supplier engagement and independent smallholders. So for Musimas, Chiak and Palawan are priority landscapes. And so we are proud to be a funder and member of the Chiak Palawan Landscape Project. And we've been involved with Fanneke and the whole core team quite early in the development phase and seen it grown through the years. And we're very happy to see that we have garnered the support of many different stakeholders, including the local government. And we believe that the Chiak Palawan Landscape Project is a fruitful partnership and it holds the potential to work towards establishing this 2 district as a deforestation and exploitation-free landscape through its program goals, as Fenike mentioned earlier, such as protecting the forests, empowering smallholders, and improving livelihoods, respecting labor rights, working closely with the government and their policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Naswa, is there something you want to share from a Cargill perspective?
Sure. Thank you, Fenike. Good afternoon to all. I'm Nasuha Tahan. I lead Cargill's Indonesia Sustainable Palm Supply Chain Program based in Singapore. So thank you so much for having us today. Sustainability is an approach and principle that requires collaboration for long-term success. And I'm glad that we have platforms like this today where we can really share and learn from one another on advancing Indonesia's sustainable palm oil agenda. So before I delve further, I'm just going to also share with you a bit of about our company. So Cargill's 155,000 employees across 70 countries work around the world to achieve our purpose of nourishing the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. We connect suppliers with markets, customers with ingredients, and people and animals with the food they need to thrive. So focusing on our palm supply chain, and in Indonesia in particular, we do operate 5 plantations in South Sumatra and West Kalimantan that make up approximately about 5% of our volumes, with the bulk of 95% actually coming from third-party suppliers across the country. So this makes partnership with our third-party suppliers extremely critical for us to really advance our sustainability commitments. So in the last quarter, 95% of our suppliers in Indonesia actually share the same sustainability commitment as us. And so our role as a hub is really, to bring these suppliers to customers who are seeking such levels of sustainable palm oil for their own products. So since we made the commitment in 2014 to end deforestation in Cargill's palm oil supply chains, we have seen unprecedented collaboration and co-creation of solutions across the Indonesia supply chain. So in particular, through the Chiak Palawan Landscape Program, where we have worked very closely with peers, suppliers, customers in the industry, and governments to navigate the many unknowns that come with tackling some of the most pressing environmental and social issues. So as a trader in the palm oil supply chain, where we connect palm suppliers and smallholders to buyers in destinations such as Europe and the US, the most frequent request that we actually get from our buyers is, can you give us verified deforestation-free volumes? That's like the number one thing that comes up nowadays. So to achieve this, we do take a 2-track approach, of ensuring our own suppliers are compliant. But secondly, we also aim to transform practices beyond our supply chain. So you may wonder why spend time and resources to look beyond our supply chain. Well, for Cargill, the brand of palm it's equally as important, if not more, and that determines the trust that consumers have for palm products as a whole. And that's really where we can't just focus on our own volumes, and landscapes as a strategy is really where both of these approaches fit in. So together with Proforest and Demeter, we mapped out our priority landscapes where we either saw significant volumes from, and as well as where there is historically there has been threats or risk of deforestation and other environmental threats. And so Chiak Palawan was actually chosen back in a few years back as Cargill's very first landscape program in our entire global supply chain. And we started this program with our members and coalition partners with such great excitement that through our work we can really position Chiak and Palawan as verified deforestation-free districts that we can then later on as traders also increase our supply from these districts to our customers who are increasingly seeking such products. So it has been 3 years of design, collaboration, and implementation, and we are really encouraged with the outcomes that we have seen thus far. The village engagement model in particular is really interesting, and we are also finding new opportunities within these villages, such as the potential for maybe later on carbon trading, to really incentivize smallholders and communities to partner with us in conservation. And having the opportunity to really dialogue directly with local district government bodies and civil society have also provided us as traders with better insights to understand challenges and opportunities on the ground. Our customers are also really valuing our strategy of landscapes, and many have also reached out to find out how they too can partner with us in landscapes and directly provide support to villagers. So Vanika shared some lessons from our journey as a coalition. But just to add on, I'll say that landscapes are a long-term commitment. Sustained change really requires investment and patience, and this is really essential for us in our landscape. Suppliers and communities, they have to be brought into this journey as opposed to simply being directed and being told what to do. And that is really what our Chiak Palawan coalition has strived as an essential principle in our approach. So, here at Cargill, we're really excited about this partnership because we really believe that transformation happens when we come together. So looking forward, to see what more we will learn and what more we'll be able to achieve and bring impact to Chiak and Palawan. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasuha. And also thank you, Stephanie. And I think we're going back to our moderators, Ibu Aisha and Charles.
Yeah, thank you, Feneke, Stephanie, and Nasuha. That's really great presentation and also great lessons learned. Before we deep dive to have discussion about SPLP itself or the landscape approach issues, we're supposed to have a remark from the Director General of Estate Crops, the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Kasdi Subagiono, after Ibu Musdalifah, but he was not there, but now he is here with us. And I would like to invite Pak Kasdi to give a short remark. Pak Kasdi, please, time is yours.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Bu Aisha. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for the very fruitful discussion and also invitation for me in order to share several policy of the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of the sustainable palm oil in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk firstly about the change in regulations in sustainable palm oil, because we already committed. I think the Ibu Deputy has already mentioned at the beginning of this session that I would like to more technical and also in terms of the link between the policy and program that we have here in Indonesia. First of all, about the ministerial regulations, our commitment now to have some. Hello? Can you record for me?
Yes, we can hear you, Pak Kasdi.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. I would like to continue my presentation. So, first of all, I would like to report in this occasion very important regulation that we changed because our commitment in order to move from the obligatory system in the Indonesian sustainable palm oil in terms of the certification procedure and processes that we have going to do. First of all, in the Minister of Agriculture Regulation number 11/2015, at that moment we just gave the obligatory for the certification of Indonesian sustainable palm oil ISPO certification only for the private sector and state government. But now we for smallholder as well, because we committed in order to increase our standard in sustainable palm oil certification, we also put obligatory system for smallholder palm oil. So that means we have to increase our quality, our standard in terms of the ISPO certification. Secondly, there's things in procedure of the ISPO that we have to commit it to the more standard procedure in the ISPO processes and certification. For example, at the beginning, we start from that the certification is legalized by the head of the Ispo Secretariat, but now we change more independently. The certification is legalized by the a survey agency. So this is a very important change. Another point that I would like to present is about the relations between ISPO in terms of the sustainable development goals. We have 70 goals in SDGs. From those 12 goals has already covered in ISPO. We have tried hard for the increasing the standard of the ISPO in order to cover the whole goals of the SDGs. This is our commitment to the ISPO standard. So I would like also to present in this occasion that we from now has already 30%, more than 30% of the area of the palm oil in Indonesia. 30% is already certified by ISPO process. So that means it's totally about the 763 certificates, including covering the 621 in 2011 to 2020, and then she added to 142 in transition period in 2021. So this is our commitment to increasing that. We would like to again to increase our process, to speed up our process in order to cover more and more area of palm oil that we have to certify by ISPO. So it's mean that 30% area is mean about more than closely to 6 million hectares, because we have total of palm oil area in Indonesia is 16.38 million hectare. So from 30% from those is already certified by ISPO. So in the procedure of completing change in ISPO process, in fact, we have already comparison of the RSPO, MSPO, in order to have change in experience how to put the more better standard of the palm oil in order to to proceed our commitment in sustainable palm oil development program. Next, please. So from this point, we would like to make a stress on as well on the smallholder palm oil, that in fact the smallholder palm oil plantation has already proceeded in ISPO process. That is very important a step that we have to encourage them in order the all palm oil private sector, state company, and also smallholder whole will be certified by the standard ISPO. So it's very important. From those certificates, 783, so already 31 certificates is part of the smallholder plantation. So it's very important part that we have push of the Ministry of Regulation that for smallholder has already obligatory for proceeding the ISPO. Next, please. So this is the development of ISPO. That this contribution of the Minister of Regulation 38 is very important on ISPO process that I have already mentioned at the beginning. That's when we refer to the SDGs. So that's already 12 goals of SDGs as covered in ISPO. So now we socialize to the people, especially for smallholder, and we collaborate with the local authority in order to more better understanding about ISPO process for the local people, and also have encouraging to the smallholders palm oil plantation in order to increase the standardization of their palm oil. This is very important because we aware that international standard is already going very fast in high level of the standard. From those, we try to have commitment in order to make a better and better ISPO process, and all of the palm oil in Indonesia will be certified and standard in the ISPO. So finally, I would like to have mentioned about the let me see, next please. I think that's the last slide. Yeah. So we would like to thank for the organizing committee I think this event, we can share each other about the how we committed in implementation of sustainable palm oil development program in each country, and we share each other about the how the standard palm oil can be make more and more better in the future. Thank you very much for the occasions, and I again thanks to the organizing committee, and ladies and gentlemen, success for the discussion. We would like to have support on this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Kasdi. It's very enlightening. This is another initiative of the government of Indonesia to strengthen and revamp the Ispo system for certification, which will cover all the business, including smallholders. Now we to the discussion session. I would like to invite my colleague Charlie to select some questions. And would you mind read that question, and also, if necessary, to invite the questioner to unmute themselves and ask the question directly. Later, we can direct the question with speaker.
Thank you.
Please, Charlie.
Thank you, Aisha. Yes, so thank you to all the questions that are coming into the chat. Invite you to carry on asking them, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. And I'm going to start with one from Jonas Dallinger. If you're there, you asked a question around who's driving the process. Are you there, Jonas? If you're able to unmute and maybe turn your video on so we can see you, that'd be great.
Yeah, maybe if you cannot unmute himself, probably you can read the question first, Charlie, so that we can direct the question to.
Is he able to unmute himself or not? Perhaps.
He is not able to unmute himself. We need to depend on the host to do that.
Oh, he seems to have gone. Okay, well, it was a good question. So Jonas's question was, who's been driving the process, and what incentives from your experience made the different stakeholders interested and willing to join the process? So Ibu Aisha, do you want to direct that to one of the panelists?
This question can be answered by Feneke, Stephanie, or Nasuha. Maybe I just give 1 minute each to respond to that question, because we talk about the motivation. Yeah, please, Feneke, you can start first.
Thank you, Aisha and Charles and Jonas, for the question. So about who is driving the processes, I think from our perspective, as I mentioned, within the coalition, there is different responsibilities between coalition members and also the facilitator. How it looks for us in the implementation is we as the facilitator know most closely what's happening in the field, what are the needs, what is the current situation, and we provide that to our coalition members, but also to the government, and we are the ones who are able to make these linkages and make the connections between the different stakeholders in order to get the process driving. But of course, it also goes the other way around. We are driven by the coalition members who share with us what are the priorities, what are the demands or the visions from downstream companies, from the supply chain, and also, of course, we are driven by Indonesian or international regulations that we want to follow. I think that is the key for the driving processes. Maybe Nasua or Stephanie want to answer the question about the incentives, or I can also do that later on if you want to add on this answer first.
Perhaps I would just add a little bit on Muslimas's perspective on what's driving the process internally. So Muslimas, I guess we see ourselves as a leader in sustainability, especially when it comes to sustainable palm oil. And internally, we have a lot of push to sort of maintain a deforestation-free and exploitation-free supply chain. We have a 2025 roadmap as well, where we detail a lot of items regarding traceability, regarding supply engagement, and NDP compliance, and also smallholders. So things like that actually point us towards a landscape approach and a landscape project, and Chiak Palawan just so happens to be in our priority areas as well, and therefore we see a very good fit. And so that's one of the process that we have, and that's why we are a supporter, rather member of this project. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think from Cargill's end, we see our role as, essentially doing that connection. So, when we came up with this idea to do landscapes, and we together with Proforest and Demeter, we chose Chiak Palawan. We were the role of bringing together the companies, the coalition partners. So our suppliers, so both Musimas and GAR, and then our customers, the other coalition partners, bringing them in as funders as well. And so we are constantly also looking for other funders, and bringing this project continuously to other customers who are right now not participating in. And I think beyond that is this also constant balance for us of what are the potential value landscapes can bring in the future, because like I mentioned, like landscapes is not a overnight solution, and so we may not see the impact right now, but we see this as a strategy that we are investing in, so that in about say 3 to 5 years time, we can be more assured of the volumes that we purchase from this area, and we can also market these products as verified products, which is increasingly being sought for. So I think when we enter these landscapes, we do ensure that some of these aspects, some of the customer requirements or expectations are also brought into the design of the program from an offtake perspective.
Great, thank you. Another question, well, it was mentioned the challenges of collaboration and how collaboration isn't necessarily the standard mode of operation for corporates. Stephanie Iriana Pasaribu has asked a question on that. Stephanie, if you're there, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, she can speak now. Stephanie, please unmute.
Yes, sorry. Oh, sorry, the other Stephanie.
The other Stephanie, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah,
Great, go ahead with your question.
Okay. I was wondering what are the main challenges that may be experienced by various actors in the stakeholders cooperation. So, and then how far that what can be done, and what has been done to deal with or to cope with the challenges.
Thank you, Ibu Stephanie Pasaribu. Feneka, you want to respond to that question?
Yes, thank you. And that is a very good question, actually. And it is absolutely something we also experience. First of all, we should not forget that there will always be a certain competition between companies. And the fact that the coalition members have joined our program, that makes that they are able to oversee that and look at the wider objectives. And I think having that is already one of the starting points that can facilitate collaboration. When it comes to collaboration with different types of stakeholders, what we notice and what we also try to address is that, first of all, stakeholders come from a different starting point, have different, maybe, as I mentioned in my presentation, have shared objectives towards sustainable development and sustainable palm oil production. But for example, from a private sector perspective, that has a commercial reason behind it, and CSOs have different reasons behind it. And bringing that together does take time, and it needs specific ways of communication to understand, to make sure that these different stakeholders understand each other. And it is not something that happens overnight. For example, in Chiak, we have also seen, I showed you the multi-stakeholder forum, the concept that we are currently supporting in the development. It can be already a challenge to get everyone in the same room at the same time. But maybe that's also not always the way to go. Maybe we should just start smaller sometimes, bring a selected group of stakeholders, bring them together, and then bring it forward, inviting larger groups. So there's not one way of achieving collaboration. And I think it needs to be flexible, depending on the individuals who are there, the type of stakeholders that are involved. And have this, an adaptive mode to achieve collaboration. And in Palawan, that can be completely different than in Chiak, even though the two districts are closely related to each other. So I think flexibility, patience are one of the key words to achieve collaboration between different types of stakeholders.
Thank you so much for the explanation.
Yeah, thank you, Feneke. Thank you, Ibu Stephanie Pasaribu. Nasuha or Stephanie, you want to add something briefly about that, about how to cope with the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need a good facilitator, and I think props to Professor and Jamita, who have been doing a good job there for us. I think ultimately you need a facilitator who who understands all the companies, the partners, will spend time trying to understand one another, but also ultimately, maintains that vision for the coalition. Because sometimes, Landscapes or Chiak Palawan is not our only program, right? We have multiple programs out there as well. And so you always need someone, a facilitator, who reminds us and keeps us on track, with the targets, with the, milestones that we want to achieve. And I think a facilitator is not just only within the companies, but also facilitators on the ground. So you also need, very good local partners who have the trust and who are given the empowerment by, the local districts themselves as individuals that they trust, who can then be a good partner for our coalition, where, we may be slightly removed from the ground on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Nasuha. If Stephanie, if you don't want to add something, maybe we can move forward to next question.
I'll just add a little short bit, because I think one of the challenges, I think Feneke is somewhat smiling because we did have a lot of challenges in the beginning, because we were struggling with the type of data to share, because in the beginning of the project, we were thinking of being a in-kind contributor instead. And what that meant was we would do a lot of on-ground, because we do have boots on the ground in Chiak Palawan area, and we were thinking of, hey, we might as well just do certain items there since we already have boots on the ground. But we ran into the situation where, things got a little bit commercially sensitive. So I think this is one of the real challenges that we do face quite a bit. And together with the other grower, GA Cinemas, we also ran into certain challenges in terms of who do we engage in terms of the suppliers there? How do we split this nicely such that both of us are actually doing something on the ground and we are contributing in a very meaningful way, and we do not overlap the work that we're doing, because they do have a lot of boots on the ground there as well. So those were challenges. We overcame it with Feneke's and Core's good grace and facilitation. So that's we ironed through it and powered through. So we just needed to have our eye on the prize, which is the end goal. Great, thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, so having facilitator in the collaboration is a must, I think, for successful landscape program. Charlie, you have another question?
Yeah, great. So Ibu Diana Khalil has asked a few questions relating to ISPO. Ibu Diana, are you there, able to ask? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you asked three separate questions, but if you want to sort of join them together and just ask, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to ask about the role of the company, especially Cargill and Musimas, as the one that directly contact or interact with the global market, while the one that doing the sustainable management in the smallholders, those that not directly. Is there any beneficial for the companies to support them to have the Ispo certification, as we know that Ispo is still not yet fully accepted by the global market? This is my concern, because we know the cost of such certification is not it's quite expensive, while we want to make it mandatory in 2025, and it's around 6 million hectares. So could we expect the long-term sustainability in economic parts, so the Ispo certification could be realized as mandatory for the whole smallholders? Thank you.
Since this is about Ispo, I also would like to invite Ibu Mus, if you are still here, Ibu Mus, to respond to how the government of Indonesia also start to increase acceptance of Ispo certification. Ibu Mus, you want to say something?
Thank you, Bu Aisyah. So to increase the acceptance of the Ispo, actually, we already working since we start to assisting the new Ispo since 2016. In order to communicate the new Ispo, we already communicate in our consumer country, our buyers, and also all our stakeholders in Indonesia, and also in international organization also. So we communicate what is the weakness of our Ispo, why the acceptance of our Ispo is not, how to say, why you reject our Ispo, why you thought that our Ispo is not accommodate the international, the global sustainable standard or principle. So that's why we communicate to look our new Ispo and also to improve our Ispo. The first thing that we heard from the international organization told us that your Ispo, why we seems not to accept your Ispo, because it's too government driven. So for this critical, that's why we in our new Ispo we already improve with the institution that the Ispo certification released by the independent auditor. And then the second one, also we improve it for our principle to accommodate the supply chains and also traceability in our principle and criteria in our Ispo. We already put in as one of our principle criteria with traceability and transparency. We hope even this scheme is not really how to say clear yet how to implement in Indonesia. Through this information landscape from the college which already Palawan and also Chiak already implement. Maybe that is one that we would like to working through how to implement it in our Ispo. And also the third one, for the independent monitoring, They are taught us that we don't involve the independent monitoring in our Ispo. That's why in our new Ispo, we already involve independent monitoring in our committee Ispo. And some others, we try supply chains and others, we try to accommodate all the global issue related to the acceptance of the certification, standard certification in our Ispo. That is what we do in order to increase the acceptance, and we hope we increase also for the future. We'd like to do communication, always do campaign and other dissemination for our Ispo. We already did with Japan country to communicate our Ispo, why they still not accept the Ispo for the MIT, for the biomass, and we try to accommodate all the global standard that they need to accept the Ispo. That's maybe for other country, for other consumer, we like to communicate all stakeholders related to communicate the Ispo. Maybe, and we also asking all our partner, all our related ministerial and institution to do communication also with their stakeholders. We hope that also we also asking our embassy in all country, consumer country, try to communicate what is their thought about our Ispo, how to accept, how to asking them that our Ispo is already accommodate all the principle and criteria for the global standard, sustainability standard in the global market. Thank you, Bu Aisyah.
Thank you, Ibu Musdalifah. That's very important explanation. And Ibu Diana, if you are reading the chat box right now, there is another explanation from Pak Prayon from the Ministry of Affairs that they are making efforts for the acceptance of Ispo in the global market. So yeah, I think we can move on with the responses from Musimas and Kargil related to that question briefly.
Right, sure. I'll just make it very brief. So actually, Musimas is very, very supportive of just helping smallholders to produce palm very sustainably. So what we do is we have a lot of smallholder programs across Sumatra and Kalimantan. The items that we teach the smallholders, things like agronomy, best management practices, IPM and all that, I do believe it's quite similar across the different certifications, and including ISPO as well. And this move that ISPO is going to be mandatory, it's really very I would say it's good for us because we want to expand our smallholders program. We have this approach called the Smallholders Hub. It is something like a landscape project, but it's just us, Musimas, and perhaps either a customer or a partner, which basically is a smaller scale compared to the Chiak Palawan project. It's probably about 2 or 3 partners within this Smallholders Hub. We actually work together with the local government in the area. So I give you an example. In Aceh Singkil, we work together with General Mills. We established a Smallholders Hub there with the Aceh government, the Aceh Singkil government, where we try and train their village extension officers there who are in charge of, the agriculture production of the area. And then we teach them things like agronomy, BMP, also things like financial literacy, NDPE, all other stuff. And then they in turn train the smallholders in their area. So how how we went about doing this was because the government actually had a very strong vested interest in getting their smallholders certified in their area to be ISPO, and that's why we were able to really scale up and get our foot into that space. So this is actually really very good for us, and we do intend to expand our smallholders program as we've laid out in our roadmap for 2025. So we have a lot more details on our website. Just feel free to let me know if you need more. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Charlie, you have another one?
Yeah, I'd like to go to Chi Tran from IDH, who asked a question about harmonizing common goals between the different partners. So Chi, I can see that you're there. Could you unmute? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, great, and we can see you.
Yeah. Okay, so hello everybody. Actually, this is should be Chi Chen to join this call. She is the director of the Asia landscape of IDH, based in Vietnam. However, because of some urgency with meeting with the stakeholder, so I am the regional officer of the Asia landscape joining this call to record for her. And the question I posed there, because honestly, I'm very impressed about the model of the coalition and also the partnership that you have in the province. So my question is, because we have the coalition will consist of many members, and they are all the private sectors. So first question is how you harmonize and set the goals commonly for the private sectors. And then because when we are working, because it is a landscape approach, and the public sector play a very important role in implementation and also monitoring, and even after that is how to make it sustainably for long term. So in the second phase, when you already harmonize the common goals for all the private sectors, and then you convince and how you share it with the public sectors, and how you reach the common goals among the private sectors and also the public sectors. And which one is more challenging, when you get the goals among the private sectors harmonized, or when you get the goals among the private and the public sector harmonized? And thank you.
Thank you, Chitan. Maybe the facilitator of coalition or the member of the coalition will respond first.
I can start with a response. I think you asked the questions about how to harmonize the goals within the coalition and between the private sector companies that are involved in the program. Well, the companies that are involved, they all have their sustainability commitments. The NDPE, no deforestation, no peatland development, and no exploitation commitments. Of course, sometimes in the details there are some differences, but overall, these goals, all the companies have these same goals. So that actually made it already much easier to start this collaboration, because as I mentioned in my presentation, need to have these shared vision, or having shared goals is important. So from the private sector perspective, that was already there. Harmonizing goals between private sector and public sector, I think also it may sound more difficult than that actually is in practice, because, for example, in Palawan, where the government has endorsed the District Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil, that aligns very well with the objectives that the private sector already has towards no deforestation or deforestation-free supply chains. It is just a matter of, sometimes it's a bit broader, sometimes it's a bit more detailed, but in general, the objectives are quite similar. And in Chiak, the Green Chiak roadmap is not specifically for palm oil. That's more, is wider. It is about district development, also involving other commodities. But that is the perfect place where the commitments from the private sector fit in to the objectives of the district government. So in terms of harmonizing the goals, we have not experienced many challenges. Maybe Stephanie or Nasuha, you want to add from your perspective? Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I think when it comes to setting goals, I recall very vividly, you know, like we were in a room and we were just essentially, you know, putting like I think it was Post-it notes just all around a whole board, just trying to figure out, see, you know, and see which goals, you know, more companies are interested in versus those where maybe just one or two were interested in. And so that whole exercise of going back and forth and, you know, the companies being vocal and being very open with what we want to achieve when we participate in a landscape, and then having that alignment with all other companies, I think was very critical. So it took us, I think, almost a year, I would say, in just design, you know, and just aligning on what those objectives and goals would be. To some, that was too long, but I think, you know, it was one of those reasons that allowed us to then succeed or, you know, have a better form of roadmap now that we're at the implementation stage, because we spent so much time, you know, making sure that as a coalition, we were aligned that these were the objectives that we want to achieve. And I think as companies as well, you know, we may have maybe about, you know, 7 to 10 goals, but like say cargo, for example, among those 7 to 10, there may be about, you know, a portion that we are more invested in versus others. And so, you know, we will spend more of our efforts or direction towards those that are more important for us. And that's fine. It's really okay in a coalition where we recognize that each other would also have their own agendas and, you know, motivations for participating. I think one thing that it would be really great in the future is, and hopefully, you know, with COVID, hopefully situation getting better, is that we can have more of these private-public interactions, you know, together at one. We did that for another program that we have, you know, Indonesia, also with Muslimas actually, on labor, which we call the Decent Rural Living Initiative. And that, I think, what was really great was we actually came on a, you know, a physical session with both the private companies and the NGOs and civil society in one room. And so both could also share, you know, what each other wanted, and really come to that alignment on, okay, so these are the priorities, this is what we need to do. So hopefully, you know, we can have more of these joint sessions between both the coalition and our local partners on the ground in districts as well.
Thank you. That could be great and very clear to me.
Thank you, Feneke. Charlie?
Yeah, great. So next, if we go to Otto Hospers from Wageningen, asking a question around the lack of awareness of landscape approaches. Otto, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Charlie. Well, good afternoon, also Ibu Mus and all other speakers. Very nice to listen to you and to see you, also from this great distance. Thanks so much for the presentation, Fennek and others. My point is, there's not so much known about this approach, certainly among, let's say, Western consumers, governments. And as you know, there's quite some, say, negative perceptions on palm oil and its sustainability, or the lack thereof. So I was thinking possibly sharing much more of information about this landscape approach and what it has achieved to a wider public, but also Western governments very strategically, functionally could help to balance the view. Nowadays, we see a lot of, say, different campaigns and news from NGOs and et cetera, in Western Europe. And there's nothing like positive ideas. So my question is, would the coalition consider taking efforts in this direction and telling much more about this approach to Western governments and customers? Thank you.
Thank you, Otto.
You're welcome.
Feneke, you want to start responding?
Yes, of course, no problem. Thank you, Otto. A very, very good and interesting question indeed. And it is indeed true that palm oil production has a bit of a negative impression in Western countries, and going palm oil free is not, in my opinion, not the way forward. And it should also be, maybe that's also a role for the coalition and for our program, indeed, to show more broader that palm oil production is not just related to deforestation or peatland development or human rights impact. It actually also contributes significantly to livelihood improvements of communities, of families and households. And I think that is something that we also want to show with our program. It is not just to prevent further deforestation. It actually aims to contribute to district development, to economic development, improved social situations for communities and workers. And that we also try to reflect that in our goals. And so, yes, absolutely. I think it is maybe one of our roles also to translate and to bring this forward to Europe, to Americas. And to really bridge the gap between producer countries and consumer countries, to show also that there are possibilities for European companies to join these types of landscapes, to feel closer connected. So absolutely, that is maybe one of our key roles, is to bring forward this positive message about the good sides of palm oil, and also to show that Indonesia is making good progress towards sustainable palm oil production.
I'm looking forward to your action.
Thank you.
Can I just add on a little bit? So, I mean, I'm from the communications team, right? So it's great that you raised this point, because the general narrative is obviously just a little bit bad towards palm oil. So we are actually working very closely with different think tanks, be it in Singapore or be it in the regional area in Asia, or also the Western area in that sense. We work very closely with Tropical Forest Alliance. We are actually, or rather we have worked with them on certain reports where they shared on jurisdictional approaches, and they didn't focus on Chiak Palawan because I think the attention there is quite big already, but they were focusing on some of the projects that we were doing with the American brands. So for example, like General Mills in Aceh Singkil, that was a project that they were very interested in. It is also a landscape approach, but on a smaller scale compared to Chiak Palawan. We also work together with the Singapore Institute of International Affairs, SIIA, to really talk about how the private sector is doing a lot to prevent forest fires. Because, you know, in Singapore, we are very, very affected by the haze if that happens if forest fires happens in Indonesia. So those are the things. I guess there are a lot of things going on, but perhaps you're right in saying that it doesn't really reach the consumer. Perhaps because of how Musimas is positioned as well. We are, after all, a business-to-business company. It's very challenging for us to, reach out to the consumer itself, and we do not have the capacity, and neither do we want to, because we are not a, B2C type of company like Unilever, right? So the position itself is quite challenging. So we do rely a lot on our customers to really communicate the good benefits, and therefore we do have on a wider scale, I mean beyond just landscapes, we do have a lot of social impact reporting. We do a lot of obviously environmental impact reporting as well, to show how our initiatives, be it landscapes, be it our own initiatives in our own operations, have helped improve livelihoods, improve the environment, and we do that through real science type of reporting, rather than just your typical greenwashing, just a very nice video and all that. So I do think There is much more to be done. And obviously we can work together with Fenike to see what kind of impact can we communicate better out of this Chiak Palawan project once, after a few years, we can see that and communicate it better. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Otto.
Yeah.
Yeah, time-wise, I think we can still have one question that can be answered by the speakers. Please, Charlie, have
Okay.
one. Finish the
I'm gonna pick one from earlier, which was from Sanjeev Louis from Sail Ventures. I'm just putting it in the chat. He's not actually here anymore, but the question is around how do the members of the program monitor the landscapes around your supply basis for land use change? How do you do this cost effectively so others can follow your model? And how do you intervene when you identify high-risk activities like fires, land clearing, planting, and forest zones being conducted by local communities?
Maybe I can also start with answering this question. It's again a very good question. So since we are still very quite at the beginning of the implementation of the program, the monitoring, we are setting that up at the moment. Of course, there is spatial analysis that we can do for monitoring of fires, for additional, for deforestation. Also, we have our team in the field, based in the villages. They can do monitoring more or less live and very accurate. But since we have only started 1 year ago with the actual implementation, we are still in the process of developing this proper monitoring system. And also coming to the second part of the question about how do members intervene, how do members intervene when identifying high-risk activities? Well, first of all, the activities and the villages that we are selecting are based on risk. So we have done intensive exercise to identify those the high-risk areas for deforestation, for peatland development, and for encroachment in forest. And those areas are the target areas in which we are operating. So that's one of the ways that we kind of, with the prevention way, try to mitigate the risks.
Nasuha or Stephanie, you want to add something?
I think just echoing, what Fenike is saying, satellite, monitoring is essentially I think it's a very good solution and approach. And it can be done, with quite low cost, in fact, especially, when you have organizations like WRI who have set up, say, the Global Forest Watch. As very good public platforms that can be utilized. So I think what we are really looking to do as a follow-up from there's this group of companies called RAD who have formed it's the use of radar as part of with GFW, and this is not publicly available. So it would be great when if we can take such information that's publicly available, increase the capabilities and capacity of the local districts to also do the monitoring on their own, and then work with the companies in terms of developing a response protocol. So when we do identify such incidents, there is a very clear line of how that identified alert will be acted upon, who will do it, how that will be engaged, how do you close the case there, and so on. I think that's really critical because we'll come to a point where when you start to have, say, new incidents of deforestation, most of the time we don't know what the product, what that deforestation is going to be for. Is it going to be palm? Is it going to be rubber or whatsoever, right? So I think that's where beyond the landscape, it will also require just collaboration, not only from palm companies, but really with the district, so you can really address the root cause at the heart of the matter. So that'll be very exciting. I think the year 2 for us, in Chiak Palawan, year 2 has started, and that's going to be quite a big focus for the group.
Yeah, thank you, Nasuha. Yeah, I'm about to close this session, but there is another one that is interesting from Mr. Kulbir Mehta. If the organizer can unmute him, I would like to please him to speak about his question. Kulbir, can you hear me? Can you try speak? Okay, that's good.
He's on the way. Yes, still muted.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I mean, thank you very much for everybody. I mean, it's been great learning right across. I've been working for a long time in Indonesia, and we can all relate to the programs that are going on the ground. What I noticed in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been there is a lot of effort has gone in from different organizations in different sectors, led and more so by the government of Indonesia, to achieve the objectives of acceptance of Ispo, sustainable palm oil, to counter all the battering that keeps happening on a regular basis. Keeping in view the work that has been done by the various organizations over the years, wouldn't it be worthwhile that everybody collaborates, put what they have done, what they have achieved, what has been the impact, and where we are heading to in the future under either the National Action Plan or to address the NDCs and the commitments there too? How do we go about it? Because I think if we put all that together in one basket, there won't be much the world outside would have to say, because sustainability per se is a continuous improvement process. It doesn't happen overnight. As Feneke mentioned right in the beginning, it takes its time. But then there has to be some recognition to the efforts that have already gone in. And we need to document it, put it in a place, and I'm sure it'll be a great help to the government of Indonesia when it takes.
Well, we're sorry. Can you make a brief one, please?
Taken head on. That's my only question. I mean, it's an observation, but if we put it all together, we have a very, very solid story behind us.
Okay. Thank you, Kulbir. Feneke, you can just briefly respond to that, and then we finish the question and answer session.
Yes. So indeed, it is important to show what has already been achieved, and but also to acknowledge that there is still a long way to go, because sustainability is essentially never achieved, right? In Chiak and Palawan, we try to get to a situation where we can do joint reporting on contributions. For example, supporting the district governments in reporting on the progress made towards the district action plan commitments. In Palawan, in Chiak, where the Chiak district government has committed to sustainable district development, also needs to show the progress that is being made. And this joint reporting, collecting all the individual efforts that have been done in the past, and reporting that in a consistent way, and also then making the links to what does it mean for Indonesians' objectives, but also to the sustainable development goals globally, that is the key, and that is something that we are going to do. So collaborating with local partners, with the district government, to create this comprehensive story of how we are together contributing to sustainable development.
Thank you, Feneke. Thank you, Feneke. So we are closing the question and answer session now. Thank you very much for very productive discussion and also all the good questions. I just want to inform you that for the questions that is not answered yet this afternoon, there will be a report that will be publicly available with your question and also with the answers. So stay tuned in the UNDP SPOIS account. Yeah, I think thanks again, and we will move forward to the next agenda.
You're muted.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your active participation in the discussion. And now we will hear wrapping up from Mr. Rusman Heriawan, Senior Advisor to the National Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil Forum. Pak Rusman, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. As we know, the first day of webinar, we have discussed and focused on the policy, direction, or even intervention made by government to lead and to achieve the certain level of sustainable palm oil. Today, we further discuss like collaboration initiative by private sector and also by civil society organization, in supporting and practicing the sustainable palm oil. Today we realize how important the private sector and CSO to promote and to achieve the sustainable palm oil. Anyway, due to time constraint, we would like to share with you a diagram of the collaborative network among stakeholders, like we can see from the screen. Yeah, this is this is just a network. Yeah, at least there are 5 main stakeholders here. One is government. Government, like policy intervention and coordination by government of Indonesia. Government is functional to release the common policy, guidance, sometimes also intervention, to make the sustainable palm oil workable. We have here at least 3 legal bases. One is the Presidential Instruction number 8/2018 about the moratorium and the productivity of improvement. I heard that deforestation rate decreased significantly for the last 3 years, since the President Instruction released in 2018. we have also presidential interaction, number 6, 2019, for National Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil. It is like platform for the sustainable palm oil practices because there are 5 components, 28 program, and 92 activities involved in the presidential interaction. This is also mandated to 14 ministries and agencies and 26 provinces. We use the approach for the presidential interaction, structure, systemic, massive, and collaborative. So it is important yet to be implemented the presidential interaction about National Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil. This is the one stakeholder. Another stakeholder, the main actors, that is private sector. Yeah, private sector mean producer, and also the buyer. Yeah, here, private sector, I believe they have a lot of experiences in good agriculture practices, in sustainability. They have also partnership model and how to support the smallholder. Number 3 here is another main actor, that is smallholder. Smallholder is the actor needed to be supported, to become strengthened, to become stronger and sustainable. Yeah. So sometimes smallholder is an actor, but also as a target for the sustainable palm oil. Number 4, we have also here NGO, yeah, or CSO, civil society organization. Yeah, I know many of them are working seriously and intensively with the local smallholder for a better plantation and toward sustainability. Last but not least, we have also international alliances, yeah, for Indonesia. Yeah, we have here CPOPSI, yeah, Consumer Good Forum, EPOA, FONA for the nation for the sustainable palm oil. We have also IBCSD and many others. Yeah, so we have all of this, yeah, to work together. Yeah. This is just if we can understand the challenge of the sustainable palm oil, we cannot work separately and work together. We have to work together. Finally, if I may conclude for the 2 days webinar, sustainable palm oil is not just a dream. It can be realized if we can work together with mutual understanding, with the strong collaboration, share responsibility, with common interest and commitment, and of course, led by government. Finally, also we have to thanks to here we have Feneke Braskamp, Stephanie Lim, and Nasuha Taha, all ladies. Yeah, this like Woman Day today. Yeah, except Pak Charlie. Yeah, Mr. Charlie. Yeah, all ladies. Yeah. So fortunately, yeah, we enjoy the presentation from them. Yeah, so I thanks to and appreciate to all of them. So I think it is the short statement from me, and thank you to Aisyah and to Charlie, yeah, for your contribution in this webinar. And thanks all for your active participation and support this webinar. Thank you. Back to Aisa and Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Rusman, especially when you mentioned that a lot of ladies here in the session. Ladies and gentlemen, before we end the session, I would like to relay some survey, short polling, to find out, to figure out actually what is your perspective on this event in general. So, whether you want to keep engaged for this. So we have 3 questions. The first question is, what do you want to see the most as the achievement of Indonesia in implementing its commitment on sustainable palm oil development? You may choose more than one answer, even if it looks like a multiple choice, but you can choose more than one answer. The second question, will you or your organization be interested or involved in landscape or project like SPLP Siak Palawan Landscape Program? And the last one, are you interested to be involved in buyers-growers dialogue? Please have your 3 minutes to fill in the polling, and then we will be showing the result to. Okay, we already have 27% participants voted. Maybe we are waiting for until 40%, then we will show the result. Okay, I think we have to 40% participants voted. So what do you want to see the most as the achievement of Indonesia in implementing the commitment of sustainable palm oil? The highest answer, if we see more companies and smallholders with certification. And after that, reducing deforestation is another indicator. And more projects like SPLP and other land is good. And will you or your organization be interested? Yes, 80% will be interested to involve in the landscape project. This is a good news for Pak Rusman and Ibu Mus and all the companies. And the last one, are you interested in buyers, growers? Almost 90% answer yes. So this is a good sign, and we would like to keep updated on the progress and also the next events that show the dialogue between growers, government, and also buyers. So now we have come to the second day of the international webinar on sustainable palm oil development in Indonesia. I would like to thank all the speakers for their insightful presentation, Ibu Musdalifah, Pak, and also participants who have actively participating during the session. Stay healthy, stay safe, everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.